Long before Cleopatra captured the world's imagination, another woman ruled Egypt, and not as a queen but as a pharaoh. Her name was Hatshepsut, and for centuries, her story was almost erased from history. Her statues were smashed, her name chiseled out, her legacy buried under the sands. Yet her reign shaped Egypt in ways no man ever did. Our story begins around 1507 BCE, in the golden age of the New Kingdom. Egypt's empire was strong, its gods powerful, and its rulers divine. Born to Pharaoh Thutmose I and Queen Amosi, Hatshepsut grew up inside the grand palaces of Thebes, surrounded by priests, warriors, and advisors. Even as a child, she stood out, confident, intelligent, and unafraid to challenge the customs of her world. The priests whispered she was blessed by Amun, the god of creation. Some said she would do things no woman had ever done. But in ancient Egypt, power belonged to men. Women could rule beside a pharaoh, never as one. Still, destiny had already chosen Hatshepsut. After her father's death, she married her half-brother, Thutmose II, a weak and often ill ruler. Behind the scenes, it was Hatshepsut who truly held the reins of power. She handled royal affairs, managed temple offerings, and earned the trust of Egypt's most powerful priests. Then tragedy struck. Thutmose II died young, leaving behind only a baby son, Thutmose III, born to a lesser wife. With Egypt now leaderless, chaos loomed. In that moment, Hatshepsut stepped forward, not as a queen, but as a guardian of Egypt's stability. She became regent for the young boy ruling in his name. But time changed her. The more she led, the more she realized that she was Egypt's true ruler, not a caretaker, but a pharaoh in her own right. In a bold and shocking move, she crowned herself pharaoh. She didn't just wear the royal crown, she wore the false beard of kings and adopted male titles. Her sculptors even carved her in the form of a man. To silence her critics, she turned to religion. "I was chosen by Amun himself," she declared, engraving her divine birth story across temple walls. And so Egypt had its first great female pharaoh. But Hatshepsut wasn't like other rulers. She didn't conquer through war. She built an empire through trade, diplomacy, and architecture. Her reign became one of peace and prosperity. She launched massive construction projects across Egypt, each one more magnificent than the last. The crowning jewel was her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a breathtaking structure carved into the cliffs of western Thebes. It rose from the desert like a staircase to heaven, covered in vivid murals and towering statues. She also reopened ancient trade routes, including a legendary expedition to Punt, God's land. Her ships returned with treasures, gold, ebony, ivory, exotic animals, and incense trees planted in her temple gardens. Under her rule, art flourished, the economy thrived, and Egypt's borders remained strong. For over 20 years, Hatshepsut ruled as pharaoh, a time historians now call Egypt's golden peace, but her success came at a price. Behind her throne, her stepson Thutmose III was growing older and watching. When he finally took power, he began erasing her memory. Her statues were destroyed, her name scratched from monuments, and her image replaced with his own. It was as if she had never existed. But centuries later, archaeologists uncovered the truth. Her temple still stood. Her name, faint but unbroken, whispered through the stone. And now we know, before Cleopatra ever ruled Egypt, Hatshepsut had already proven that power. Wisdom and legacy have no gender. When Hatshepsut crowned herself pharaoh, Egypt stood in shock. Never before had a woman claimed the double crown, the symbol of Upper and Lower Egypt united. But Hatshepsut was not one to follow tradition. She was born to rewrite it. Her first challenge was legitimacy. The priests and nobles were uneasy. Egypt's religion was built around the belief that the pharaoh was the living son of the god Amun-Ra. How could a woman fit into that divine image? Hatshepsut knew that to rule, she had to become divine herself. So she crafted one of the most brilliant political and religious campaigns in history. On the walls of her temple, she told a story that Amun himself had descended from the heavens, visited her mother in disguise, and fathered her. She was not just a ruler chosen by men, but a child of the gods. This myth became her armor, Priests began addressing her as God's wife of Amun. Her divine birth wasn't a mere legend. It was a declaration of destiny. To strengthen her claim, she transformed her image. At first, her statues showed her as a woman, soft features, slender frame. But as her power grew, her likeness evolved. She ordered sculptors to carve her as a man, broad-shouldered, wearing the false beard of kings. It wasn't vanity, it was strategy. She wasn't pretending to be a man, she was embodying the role of Pharaoh, a living symbol of Egypt itself. Under her rule, the kingdom flourished. She restored temples long abandoned by her predecessors. Gold flowed again from Nubia, and the people praised her name. She wasn't a warrior like Thutmose the Rain or a conqueror like Ramses. Her power was creation. She built, traded, and inspired. Her most trusted ally was Senenmut, a commoner who rose to become her chief architect and advisor. Some historians believe they shared more than loyalty, perhaps even affection. Whatever the truth, their partnership created wonders. Senenmut designed her greatest masterpiece, the mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, rising in terraces from the desert floor. It was unlike anything Egypt had seen. Its clean lines, open courtyards, and symmetrical design reflected perfect harmony, a vision of order and eternity. On its walls, her story unfolded in vivid color, her divine birth, her coronation, and her triumphs as pharaoh. One scene stands out, her expedition to Punt. Punt was a land of mystery, believed to lie near modern-day Eritrea or Somalia. Egypt hadn't reached it for centuries, yet Hatshepsut sent ships across the Red Sea to restore that ancient bond. When they returned, they brought exotic riches, incense trees, gold, ivory, leopard skins, and animals never before seen in Egypt. It was more than trade, and it was a symbol of Egypt's reach, her diplomacy, and her vision of peace. She ordered incense trees from Punt to be planted around her temple, a living monument to prosperity. But as her power grew, whispers returned. Some nobles resented her rule. Others feared her influence over the priests. And in the shadows, the young Thutmose III waited, the boy king who had grown into a soldier. Hatshepsut had raised him as her heir, but she knew he dreamed of command. To keep Egypt stable, she kept him away from politics, training in the army instead. But with every passing year, her rule challenged tradition more deeply. To the people, she was a god. To her enemies, an anomaly that had gone too far. Yet for over 2 decades, Egypt thrived under her steady hand. Peace reigned. Trade flourished. The temples gleamed with gold and the Nile's floods blessed the fields. But power in Egypt was never eternal. The gods could bless or curse, and even the divine had enemies. After 20 years of peace and prosperity, the inevitable storm began to form. Hatshepsut's health began to decline, and with it, her control over the empire weakened. Thutmose III, no longer a child, had become a brilliant general, ambitious, disciplined, and hungry for power. Egypt's army adored him, and in the hearts of the old guard, the idea of a male ruler was comforting. In her final years, Hatshepsut prepared for eternity. She ordered a secret tomb deep in the Valley of the Kings, a place once reserved for male pharaohs. Even in death, she demanded equality. Her sarcophagus was crafted from quartzite, carved with golden inscriptions. Calling her the perfect goddess, she planned everything, even her journey to the afterlife. But around 1458 BCE, Egypt fell silent. The great pharaoh was gone. The moment she died, Thutmose III seized power completely. Outwardly, he honored her memory for a while. But as his reign strengthened, his resentment grew. To him, her legacy was a stain, a reminder that a woman had once ruled the empire better than any man. So he did something almost unthinkable in Egyptian tradition. He tried to erase her from existence. Across the land, stonemasons were ordered to destroy her images, deface her statues, and remove her name from temple inscriptions. Her obelisks were buried, her cartouches scratched out, her monuments replaced with his own. For the ancient Egyptians, being forgotten was worse than death. To erase one's name was to erase one's soul. And yet, Hatshepsut's story didn't disappear entirely. Some inscriptions were too deep, some carvings too grand to destroy. Her temple at Deir el-Bahari, though damaged, still stood defiant in the desert sun. Thutmose III would go on to become one of Egypt's greatest military rulers, expanding the empire through conquest. But his victories came from the wealth and stability Hatshepsut had built. His glory stood on her foundation. Centuries passed. The sands of Thebes covered her temple. Then, in the 19th century, explorers and archaeologists rediscovered her temple, and her story began to breathe again. For nearly 3,000 years, Hatshepsut's name lay buried beneath layers of sand and silence. Then in the 1800s, European explorers began uncovering clues, fragments of inscriptions. But it was not until 1903 that archaeologist Howard Carter, the same man who later discovered Tutankhamun's tomb, uncovered the magnificent temple of Deir el-Bahari in all its glory. He read the inscriptions puzzled. They spoke of a pharaoh named Matkare Hatshepsut, a name history had long erased. For decades, Egyptologists debated her story. Was this pharaoh truly a woman? Why had her legacy been destroyed? Slowly, through painstaking research, her truth emerged. In 2007, modern DNA testing finally confirmed her identity. A mummy found in tomb, Successor, once dismissed as unimportant, matched a missing tooth from a box inscribed with her name. After millennia, the forgotten queen had been found. Today, Hatshepsut is recognized as one of the most successful pharaohs in Egyptian history. Her 22-year reign brought stability, art, and prosperity unmatched by many male rulers. Her temple still stands. Modern historians see her as a pioneer, a ruler who broke the boundaries of gender and redefined what leadership meant. She proved that wisdom could build an empire. Standing before her temple today, you can almost hear the echo of her words. I have raised what was in ruins. I have built what was destroyed. For centuries, men tried to silence her, but time, as always, is the greatest storyteller. And now, the world remembers the name Hatshepsut, the pharaoh who refused to be forgotten. Subscribe for more.